A lot of us are using audio interfaces with multiple inputs and outputs, and I want to look at setting that up in this video. And to start with, I want to create a song, and I'm going to start with one of the new smart templates, and let's go with the Play Now smart template, where it'll automatically generate a piano for us, and we looked at that last time. But let's look at this window a little more closely, so we can select what we want here, and of course we can select from different templates. But the first thing is to give it a name, and then a location, and it'll store this in the default location on your hard drive in your user folder, Documents, Studio One Songs, or click there and you can get a file selector to choose where you want it. And then we can choose the sample rate, and again, this is based on what's available for your audio hardware, and several other settings. The bit depth, time base, if we want to work in bars or seconds, frames. I'm going to work in bars for now. The length, which can be changed, so it doesn't matter. We can even set a default tempo anywhere you want, but this can all be changed. The default time signature and key signature. And this is important. Stretching audio files to tempo can be enabled or disabled, and all of these can be changed after the fact. So these are just initial starting settings to work with. And when you're importing audio, it'll conform it to the tempo with this enabled. And then this, for Studio One users of earlier versions, will notice this is new. We have different customization templates that are available, so we can optionally enable or disable that. And because it's a smart template, it's setting up the basic configuration for us, and we'll look at that probably in another video. But let me leave that on for now and set this up. And now we have our instrument. I'm just going to close this with the tutorial and we can play it. But what I want to get to is under the song menu. First, though, just to take a quick look under View, we have the new customization, Edit Customizations, and these are the different sets of controls that are available. If I go to Complete, for example, you'll see some things changed up here and in the inspector, which is hidden, and we'll get to all this. But I just wanted to show you where this is, and we can edit the customization there. But let's just go back to Basic for now. So under Song, what I want to go to is Song Setup. And here we have the general information that we set when we created it, and we can change any of this here. And we have the meta information for the artist profile. I can add any or all of this information if I want, and then I can easily store it and update the profile. And this is what I want to get to, is the audio I/O setup. So it's defaulted to 2 inputs and 1 pair of outputs, and this interface has a lot more. There's 8 or 10 actually analog inputs, and then there's ADAT and so on. You can even see my voice. I'm plugged into input 1. You can see it triggering here. But I want to add more of the inputs and outputs so they'll be available within my Studio One songs. So we have a matrix here of hardware inputs and software routing, and generally it's a one-to-one match. There's ways of creating very sophisticated, complex routings, but let's stick with the basics for now. I'm going to go add mono. Adding a third input in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10. I'll go with that for now. Now you can name these. Like, for example, I happen to have my input 3 set up as my overhead drum mic on the left, and then that one's the overhead right. I'm just going to name them quickly. I'm just hitting Tab to move back and forth. For example, now here, let's make this window a bit bigger so we can see it all. We can click to assign the routing wherever we want, but in this case, I want this one to be assigned to analog 3. I want this one to be assigned to analog 4. And by naming them, I'll see these names in my list within the tracks within Studio One, which is a bit more useful to me than just seeing input 3, input 4, and so on. So with that done, I'm going to click in these. They're already by default lined up with the default one-to-one assignment. And I'm just going to hit Apply, and that'll sort of enable them all. And we're good to go. Now I can do the same thing for the outputs, where I've got my main outputs, and I can add, in this case, I'm going to add stereo outputs. And I don't need to add that many, but I'm using these to feed my headphones. And this is important when you're creating headphone mixes. And I actually don't even need 3. Now, if you're running, let's say, a surround setup, you might want to enable them all and name them, rear, side, center, and so on. But for that, I'm just going to hit Remove there, and I'm just left with the basics that I'm using. And again, I'm going to hit Apply to enable them. Now, we can add here, and we can add multiple at one time. I did them individually, but you can add multiple channels at once if you're working with huge setups. And you can make this the default, and you can also set the audition output. And I'm going to leave it to main for now for the purposes of our video, but you might want to audition, for example, when you're auditioning loops in the browser or audio files in one of the browsers for example, you might want to route it somewhere else, but I'm going to leave it at mains. And I can make this the default, which I'm going to do. And it's asking me if I want to make it the default setup, and I'm going to go yes. And we can import or export these audio setups. And I think I'm going to export this because I sometimes do use another audio interface. And just to show you where it's stored in the users folder under your username, Documents, Studio One, IO configuration. And I'll click save and we're done. We'll continue with more in the next video.